I had just been told I had Hodgkin lymphoma, and some useless part of my brain was still worried about whether I looked weird sitting alone in the oncology waiting room. The doctor had been careful with his voice. Calm. Measured. Like if he said it gently enough, the word would land softer. It didn't. I called my mom first. Straight to voicemail. I called again because, apparently, when your life cracks open, you become the kind of person who thinks maybe voicemail made a mistake. Nothing. My brother texted back after I called him. In court. What's up? I looked at that message for almost a full minute and couldn't make my fingers answer. What was I supposed to type? Hey, can you step out between objections, because I just found out my body is doing something terrifying? So I locked my phone, then unlocked it, then locked it again. There were people I could have called. Friends who had said, anything you need, man. Guys from work. Old college friends. A neighbor who once helped me carry a couch up 3 flights of stairs and told me I owed him forever. But all those people suddenly felt very far away. Like they belonged to the version of my life from earlier that morning, when I was just tired and worried, not sitting under fluorescent lights with a folder full of words I didn't want. Then I opened Sophie Menard's name. I still don't know why she was the first person I told. Or maybe I do, and I just didn't want to admit it then. I typed 2 words. It's cancer. I stared at them, hated them, sent them anyway. Sophie worked on the same office floor as me, but not with me. She was a litigation assistant at the law firm that shared our elevator bank. I worked in consulting, which meant I spent most of my day making slide decks look more confident than the facts behind them. We met because the vending machine took my last dollar and gave me nothing. I had slapped the side of it once, not hard, just enough to make my frustration official. Sophie walked in, saw me standing there like a man betrayed by snacks, and said, "You know it's not a negotiation, right?" I said, "Everything's a negotiation." She stepped around me, pushed 2 buttons, and the machine dropped the exact granola bar I'd been trying to buy. Then she took it. I said, "That was mine." She said, "No, that was evidence you don't understand machines." That should have been the end of it. Instead, it became a routine. Bad coffee in the break room. Elevator sarcasm. Arguments about which microwave smelled worst. Her telling me my tie looked like I had lost a bet. Me telling her her color-coded pens were a cry for help. Somewhere along the way, those stupid little battles became the best part of my workday. She also noticed things. Too many things. A month before that waiting room, she caught me dumping coffee grounds into my mug without adding water. "You planning to chew it?" she asked. I looked down and realized what I'd done. I told her I was tired. She said, "You look like a printer ran out of ink." I told her I was fine. She didn't believe me. After that, she watched me in a way that made lying harder. She noticed when I stopped eating lunch. She noticed when I wore the same hoodie in June because I kept getting chills. She noticed me sweating through a shirt after walking up 1 flight of stairs. She noticed the swelling near my collar before I wanted to talk about it. One afternoon, she blocked the break room door with one shoulder and said, "You're going to a clinic." I laughed because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. "Sophie, I'm busy." "No, you're pale, stubborn, and bad at pretending. I have meetings. You have lymph nodes the size of marbles and the survival instincts of a wet napkin." I went because arguing with Sophie was usually fun, but arguing with Sophie when she was right was exhausting. And now here I was. My phone buzzed less than a minute after I sent the message. "Where are you?" I sent the hospital name. No dots. No delay. Just, "Stay there." Like I had anywhere else to go. I don't know how long it took her. 20 minutes, maybe 30. Tom was acting strange. People kept coming in and out through the automatic doors, shaking rain off umbrellas, speaking quietly to nurses, carrying bags and folders and faces that looked too calm. Then Sophie came through the doors with rain on her coat and a paper bag in her hand. She stopped when she saw me. For once, she didn't have a smart comment ready. That scared me more than anything. Her dark hair was damp at the ends, stuck to her cheek. She had her work badge still clipped to her coat, crooked like she had left in the middle of something. She walked straight over, sat down beside me, and put the paper bag between us. Then she looked around. "Why are you here alone?" I held it together until that question. Not fully. I didn't fall apart. I didn't make a scene. I just felt something in my chest give way, quietly, like a shelf breaking in another room. "My mom didn't pick up," I said. My voice sounded flat. "My brother's in court." Sophie's jaw tightened, but she didn't insult them. She didn't say the thing people say when they want to fill space. She reached into the bag and pulled out a coffee cup. You probably shouldn't drink this, she said. Then why did you bring it? Because I panicked near a cafe, and this was the only plan I had. I took it because my hands needed something. Then she pulled out a muffin wrapped in wax paper. I also got this. I'm not hungry. I didn't ask for your whole philosophy on hunger. I looked at her, and somehow, in that horrible room, I almost smiled. She didn't smile back. Not really. She just shifted closer, shoulder almost touching mine. Start over, she said. Slowly. So I did. I told her about the doctor. The scans. The biopsy. The way he said Hodgkin lymphoma like it was a phrase I should already know how to carry. I told her there was a plan, which was supposed to make me feel better and didn't. I told her they wanted to start treatment fast. Sophie listened the whole time. She didn't tell me everything would be fine. She didn't say I was strong. She didn't turn my fear into a motivational poster. She just sat there, hands folded around her coffee, eyes on me like I was still the same guy who argued with her about vending machines yesterday. When? She asked. First chemo is next Thursday. She nodded once, like I had told her a meeting time. Okay, she said. I'm clearing my Thursdays. I blinked at her. For what? She looked at me like I had asked something stupid. For you. I wanted to argue. It was what we did. I wanted to tell her she had work, and I had family, and this was too much, and she didn't owe me anything. But the words didn't come. Because the truth was, my mother still hadn't called back. My brother was still somewhere in court. Everyone else was still floating far away on the other side of the life I'd had that morning. And Sophie was there. Rain on her coat. Bad coffee in her hand. A muffin I was too miserable to refuse. For the first time since the doctor said the word, I didn't feel completely alone. The next Thursday, I got to the infusion waiting area 20 minutes early because I didn't know what else to do with myself. That was my whole strategy back then. Arrive early. Hold the folder. Read the same page 3 times. Pretend being punctual counted as control. Sophie was already there. She sat near the window with one leg crossed over the other, her coat folded across her lap, 2 drinks on the small table beside her, and a tote bag at her feet that looked heavy enough to contain emergency supplies for a family of 5. I stopped in the doorway. She looked up. You're late. My appointment's at 9. I got here at 8:30. That doesn't make me late. That makes you weird. Good. You're still annoying. I was worried. I walked over and sat beside her, and for a second I just looked at the drinks. 1 coffee. 1 tea. She pushed the tea toward me. I assume you're going to be dramatic about the coffee being bad for you now, she said. I never said I was giving up coffee. You also once said you were fine while looking like a haunted office printer, so your judgment is under review. The nurse called my name before I could answer. That first day felt like learning a new language I had never wanted to speak. Check in here. Sit there. Roll up your sleeve. Answer the same questions. Confirm your name and birthday until they stopped sounding like mine. Sophie stayed beside me like she belonged there. She didn't hover. That mattered. She didn't grab my arm or whisper like I was made of glass. She sat in the chair next to mine, opened her tote bag, and started unloading things onto the little table. A phone charger. A bottle of water. Crackers. Ginger tea. A paperback book. A crossword puzzle book. A pack of gum. A tiny container of lemon drops. I stared at the pile. Did you rob a hospital gift shop? No, she said. I researched. That's worse. It is. I now know too much about nausea snacks. I leaned back in the chair and tried to act like that didn't hit me somewhere soft. The medicine started, the room hummed around us, and I waited for something dramatic to happen. I don't know what I expected. A lightning strike. A visible line between before and after. Instead, it was quiet. Machines clicked. Nurses moved from chair to chair. Somebody's husband snored with a magazine open on his chest. Sophie opened the crossword book. 7 letters, she said. Stubborn fool. That's 2 words. I'm modifying the puzzle. I'm not helping you insult me. You don't have to help. You just have to sit there and inspire me. That was the first Thursday. After that, Thursdays became a strange kind of calendar. Not normal days. Not exactly bad days. Just Sophie days, hospital days, hold your breath days. She was always there before me. Sometimes she had tea. Sometimes soup in a thermos. Sometimes toast wrapped in foil because she decided my breakfast choices were a legal concern. Once she brought a banana and wrote "Eat this" on the peel with a black marker. I said, you know I can read regular labels, right? She said, you ignore those. She brought books I was too tired to read. She brought crossword puzzles and got mad when I solved the easy ones faster than she did. She brought office gossip from both sides of the floor, usually delivered with the seriousness of a court filing. Greg from accounting changed his standing desk settings again. She told me one morning. That's not gossip. It is if you know he did it, because Jenna said his posture made him look guilty. I had a needle in my arm, a blanket over my knees, and somehow I was laughing about a man's suspicious posture. On the better days, we argued like nothing had changed. Movies were the easiest target. Sophie thought my taste was too predictable. I told her she only liked sad foreign films because she enjoyed pretending subtitles were a personality. She looked offended for half a second, then said, "That is the least educated thing you've ever said, and I've watched you try to fix a copier by apologizing to it." We argued about coffee, about whether soup counted as lunch, about her color-coded pens, which she kept bringing to organize my appointment printouts. "You do realize blue and black ink both communicate information," I said. "Blue is for scheduling. Black is for medical notes. Red is for things you'll pretend not to hear. What's green for? Evidence that you're being difficult. Then you need a bigger pen." She smiled at that one and tried to hide it behind her cup. But not every Thursday had room for jokes. Some mornings I woke up already tired. Not normal tired. Not stayed up too late tired. More like my bones had been filled with wet cement overnight. I'd sit on the edge of my bed in the same t-shirt I had slept in and stare at my shoes like they were a complicated problem. Food started becoming a negotiation. Smells bothered me. The wrong texture could ruin an entire meal. My jeans got loose. My face looked narrower. My hair started showing up on my pillow and in the shower drain. And every time I saw it, I acted like I didn't care. Sophie never let me get away with acting for long. One Thursday, I caught her looking at me while I picked at a container of rice. "What?" I asked. "You've eaten 3 bites. I'm pacing myself. You're losing a race to rice." "I'm not hungry." "I know," she said, softer than usual. "Try 2 more." Something about the way she said it made me do it. Not because she ordered me around, even though she did that plenty. Because she didn't look away from the ugly parts. She just adjusted. When I couldn't handle coffee, she brought mint tea. When crackers tasted like cardboard, she tried applesauce. When I stopped answering texts for a day, she showed up with soup and stood in my kitchen judging my empty refrigerator. "You own mustard, sparkling water, and 1 egg," she said. "That's basically meal prep. That's a cry for adult supervision." I'm 30. Then this is even more serious. She started reminding me about appointments, but she did it like she was annoyed at my calendar, not at me. She sent messages that said things like, 10 a.m., blood draw. Wear the hoodie that doesn't make you look like you lost a fight with laundry. I told myself I didn't need her. Then Thursday would come, and I would walk into that waiting area, see her in the same chair near the window, and feel my shoulders drop before I could stop them. That scared me. Needing someone had always seemed like a trap to me. I liked being useful. I liked being the person who handled things. I liked problems with steps and solutions and a clean end. This had none of that. There was no way to outwork it. No way to make a spreadsheet convincing enough to skip the hard parts. Sophie didn't try to fix that. She just sat beside me through it. By week 6, I was tired in a way that made every small thing feel personal. My skin felt wrong. My clothes hung wrong. My patience was gone before the day even started. That Thursday, Sophie was talking quietly to a nurse about one of my medications because I had forgotten what I was supposed to take and when. She had my appointment sheet in one hand and her red pen in the other, underlining something like she was preparing for trial. I watched them from the chair, heat rising in my face. When she sat back down, she slid the paper toward me. "Okay," she said. "So this one is only as needed, and this one. I can read." I snapped. She stopped. The room didn't. Machines still clicked. People still talked softly. A nurse laughed at something across the room. But between us, everything went still. I heard myself keep going, even though some part of me was already trying to pull the words back. "You don't have to manage me, Sophie." Her hand stayed on the paper. For the first time in weeks, she didn't answer right away. And that silence felt worse than anything she could have said. "I didn't say you couldn't read," Sophie said. Her voice was quiet, which was worse than if she had snapped back. I looked away from her. "You were talking to her like I wasn't sitting here." "I was asking because you told me in the car you couldn't remember." I said I wasn't sure. "That's the same thing with more pride." I let out a bitter little laugh. It didn't sound like me. Right? Of course. So now I need you to translate my own appointments back to me. Sophie's face changed then. Not much. Just enough that I knew I had hit something I shouldn't have touched. The nurse had moved on. The room kept going around us, soft voices and plastic chairs, and the steady little beeps from the machines. I wanted to disappear into the blanket over my knees. Sophie folded the appointment sheet once, slowly, and set it on the table. You don't have to do that, I said, quieter. Do what? Act like I didn't just sound like a jerk. You did sound like a jerk. I rubbed my hand over my face. It came out wrong. No, she said. It came out exactly how fear usually comes out. Messy and aimed at the closest person. That made me look at her. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't angry either, not in the way I expected. She looked tired, but steady, like she had decided not to let the worst version of me be the only one in the room. I'm not mad at you for being scared, she said. I'm not even mad that you're angry. You get to be angry. This whole thing is unfair. I swallowed and stared down at my hands. But, she continued, you don't get to turn that anger on yourself and call it independence. And you don't get to push me away just because needing help makes you feel small. I hated how well she said it. I hated that she knew. I had spent weeks pretending I was letting her help because she was stubborn, because she showed up, because arguing with her was easier than arguing with nurses and calendars and my own body. But the truth was uglier. I was terrified that every time she did something kind, I became less of the guy she used to argue with by the coffee machine. Less sharp, less funny, less worth choosing. Just another tired person in a chair, with loose clothes and shaking hands and medical papers he couldn't keep straight. I don't know how to do this, I admitted. Sophie's expression softened, but she didn't rush in with comfort. Yeah, she said. I know. I'm used to handling my own stuff. I've noticed. Badly. I almost laughed, but it caught in my throat. For a while, neither of us said anything. She picked up the red pen, clicked it twice, then stopped herself like even that was too much noise. Finally, I asked, why are you still here? She looked at me like the question had been sitting between us for weeks, and she was glad I finally got tired enough to ask it. Because I care about you, she said. Enough that leaving was never actually an option. Write in the comments. Was Sophie right to stay so close when I was sick and scared, or is loving someone through that kind of pain more than anyone should be expected to carry? My chest tightened. I tried to make it lighter. That was my instinct. Turn it into a joke before it got too real. That sounds bigger than friendship. Sophie held my gaze. It is. 2 words. No drama. No speech. No nervous laugh after it. Just the truth, sitting there between my paper cup and her red pen. I didn't know what to do with it. A healthier, braver version of me might have said the right thing. Might have told her I had been waiting for her every Thursday before I even walked through the doors. Might have told her that the sound of her shoes in my apartment hallway had become one of the only things that made me feel normal. Instead, I looked down at myself. At my thin wrists. The blanket. The hoodie that used to fit better. The hair I had started keeping under a beanie because watching it go was harder than I wanted to admit. I looked terrible, I said. Sophie didn't answer right away. Then she leaned closer, just enough that I had to look at her. You look like someone surviving something hard, she said. That doesn't make you less yourself. That got through. Not because it was pretty. Not because it fixed anything. It didn't. I was still tired. Still scared. Still in that chair. But she said it like she believed I was still there under all the parts one couldn't control. I turned my hand over on the armrest. It was a small movement. Embarrassingly small. Sophie noticed anyway. She put her hand in mine. Neither of us made a big deal out of it. We just sat like that while the rest of the Thursday moved around us. Her thumb rested against my knuckle. My hand felt weak in hers, but she didn't hold it like something fragile. She held it like something real. After that day, I stopped trying so hard to keep her at a safe distance. I still had bad moods. I still got quiet. I still hated asking for help. But I stopped pretending she was just showing up because she had a bossy personality and too much free time. She came because she wanted to be there, and I started letting that mean what it meant. The next few weeks got harder before they got better. Some days I could answer emails from the couch and feel almost normal for an hour. Other days my apartment felt too big, like every room required more energy than I had. Then came the fever weekend. It started on a Saturday night. I kept telling myself it was nothing. Just chills. Just another bad stretch. By midnight, I was sitting on the bathroom floor with my phone in my hand, trying to decide whether calling the emergency number made me dramatic. Sophie called me before I could decide. You didn't answer my text, she said. I was busy. Doing what? Considering becoming a bathroom rug. There was 1 second of silence. What's your temperature? I told her. Her voice changed. I'm coming over. Call the number they gave you. Sophie. Call. Then unlock your door. She got me to the hospital with a speed that would have impressed me if I wasn't too miserable to care. By morning, I was in a room upstairs, annoyed, exhausted, and wearing socks with rubber grips that made me feel about 80 years old. Sophie arrived again after they let her back in. She had a charger, clean clothes, my toothbrush, and a container of soup I probably couldn't handle but appreciated anyway. Her hair was tied up badly, like she had done it in a moving car. There were faint shadows under her eyes. You look awful, I said. She dropped the bag into the chair. Romance is alive. That made me laugh. Not much. Barely. But it was the first real laugh I'd had in days, and she looked so relieved that I had to turn my head toward the window for a second. She stayed through that weekend. She argued with a vending machine on my behalf and lost. She read half a page of a book out loud before admitting the book was boring. She watched terrible TV with me and made comments about every commercial until I told her I needed medical rest from her opinions. By the time I went home, I understood something I probably should have understood earlier. The treatment had taken a lot from me. Strength, sleep, appetite, privacy, the easy confidence I used to wear without thinking. But Sophie had become the person I trusted most inside all of that. And when the nurse mentioned that my last infusion was getting close, I didn't feel brave. I just looked at Sophie sitting beside me, stealing the blanket from the end of my bed because she was cold, and thought, whatever came next, I wanted her there. The last infusion should have felt like crossing a finish line. That was what I expected, anyway. I pictured myself walking out of the hospital lighter, maybe even smiling like people did in videos when everyone clapped and somebody rang a bell. I thought the last day would feel clean. Like the hard part would end when the nurse removed the line and told me I was done. Instead, I sat there with Sophie beside me and felt strangely empty. The room looked the same. Same chairs, same low voices, same machines, same weak coffee smell from the family waiting area. Sophie had brought tea and a cinnamon roll because she said a finish line deserved pastry, even if my body had recently become dramatic about pastry. You're staring at it like it owes you money, she said. I looked down at the cinnamon roll. It kind of does. You've had a complicated relationship with breakfast. I used to be good at breakfast. You used to call gas station coffee breakfast. That was efficiency. That was neglect with a lid. I smiled, but it faded fast. She noticed. Of course she did. When the nurse said I was finished, Sophie squeezed my shoulder. I nodded like I understood what finished meant. But I didn't. Not really. Because nobody handed me my old life at the door. Nobody promised the next scan would be good. Nobody told my brain it could stop bracing for more bad news. In the parking lot, Sophie asked, "Do you want to celebrate?" I leaned against the passenger door and looked at the wet pavement. It had rained earlier, and the whole hospital lot reflected gray sky and red brake lights. I don't know how, I said. She didn't argue. She just unlocked the car. Okay, she said. Then we won't force it. That was one of the things I loved about her before I was brave enough to say love in my own head. She didn't demand the correct emotion from me. She didn't need me to perform hope on command. If I felt nothing, she made room for nothing. If I felt scared, she sat next to scared like it had a chair too. The scan was scheduled 2 weeks later. Those 2 weeks were longer than all the Thursdays combined. I tried to work from home, but I kept reading the same sentence in emails and forgetting what the question was. I watched shows without following the plot. I opened my fridge, closed it, and stood there wondering why I had walked into the kitchen. Sophie handled the waiting badly, but in a way that somehow helped. She came over one evening with cleaning supplies and no warning. "Your kitchen is bothering me," she said. "My kitchen didn't invite you. It's still on my nerves." She wiped counters that were already mostly clean, rearranged my mugs by size, and found a takeout container in the back of the fridge that made her hold it away from her body like evidence. "This has its own government now," she said. "It's leftovers. It was leftovers. Now it has ambitions." She also overwatered my plant. The plant had survived months of my inconsistent care, then nearly lost the fight because Sophie got nervous and drowned it in affection. "You're not supposed to water it every time you make eye contact," I told her. It looked dry. It's a cactus. It looked emotionally dry. She started arguments on purpose too. I knew what she was doing, but I let her. One night she claimed baseball was mostly people standing around in matching pants. I said that was an ignorant statement. She said consulting was mostly people standing around in expensive shirts. I told her at least baseball had scores. She told me my job had scores too, but they were hidden inside charts nobody wanted to read. For 10 minutes, I forgot the scan. That was the gift she kept giving me. Not perfect comfort. Not big speeches. Just 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there, a stupid argument, a badly folded towel, her shoulder against mine on the couch, while the future waited outside the door. On the morning of the results, she showed up early. I was already dressed, sitting on the edge of my bed with my shoes on but untied. She stepped into the doorway and looked at me. You planning to wear them like that? I got halfway. Strong start. She crossed the room, crouched in front of me, then paused. Normally I would have made a joke. Something about being able to tie my own shoes. Something about her being bossy. But I didn't have it in me. So she tied them. Neither of us said anything about it. At the hospital, we sat in the same waiting room where she had first found me alone. Same fluorescent lights. Same stack of old magazines. Same table. I remembered sitting there with the folder in my lap, calling my mother, staring at my phone, feeling like the room had swallowed all sound. This time Sophie sat beside me with her hand resting close to mine. Not touching yet. Close enough. You okay? She asked. No. Yeah, she said. Me neither. That helped more than okay would have. When the doctor came in, he was smiling. I saw the smile before I understood it. He sat down across from us, opened the file, and said the word. Remission. For a second, I didn't move. The word didn't explode. It didn't come with music. It just landed in the room and replaced the other word that had been living in my head for months. I looked down because I didn't trust my face. Then Sophie grabbed my hand so hard it hurt. I was grateful for the pain. It made the moment real. It told me I was still there. She was still there. We had heard the same word. The doctor kept talking after that, about follow-ups and scans and what came next, but I only caught pieces. Sophie listened. Of course she did. Her thumb stayed pressed into my hand like she was afraid I might float away. Outside, the air felt too bright. I stopped on the sidewalk in front of the hospital doors. Cars moved through the drop-off lane. A woman in blue scrubs hurried past us with a badge swinging from her pocket. Somewhere nearby, someone laughed into a phone. The world had the nerve to look normal. I stood there, breathing like I was learning how. Sophie turned toward me. You're allowed to believe the good thing. I looked at her then. Raincoat girl. Vending machine thief. Red pen tyrant. The person who had sat through every awful Thursday, every quiet hour, every bad mood I threw too close to her. The person who never treated me like a project, never looked away from the parts that scared me, never made love sound like pity. I kissed her right there outside the hospital. It wasn't perfect. I was still too thin, still tired, still scared in places I hadn't figured out yet. But it was mine. My choice. My mouth on hers, my hand in her hair, her fingers gripping the front of my jacket like she had been waiting and refusing to rush me. When we pulled apart, she blinked at me. Well, she said, a little breathless. That took you long enough. I laughed, and this time it didn't catch in my throat. A year later, I was back at work. The coffee machine was still terrible. The vending machine still stole money. Sophie still kept too many color-coded pens and claimed each one had a purpose. I still told her that was not a filing system. It was a cry for help. She still argued with me like it was her favorite part of the day. The difference was, when the elevator reached the lobby, I walked her home. At her door, she complained that I bought the wrong coffee again, and I told her she had terrible taste in almost everything except men. She rolled her eyes. Then she kissed me anyway. The hardest year of my life didn't give me some clean lesson I could frame and hang on a wall. It gave me something clearer than that. It showed me who came through the door when I was alone. The girl who always argued with me became the one person I never wanted to face anything without.